Good afternoon, and welcome to this session. We would like to delve, as you said, on the topic of what GCCs are doing in this space. We've heard a lot about how this space is changing, but we have four very distinguished people from very different viewpoints who can give us a good idea of what's actually making us succeed on this and where have we come thus far. And we'll probably take it forward and see, what would it take to leapfrog and actually provide much superior outcomes to our enterprises that we work for. So I'll start with KSV. KSV, from your viewpoint is that from a NASSCOM, which has done a great amount of work of putting this whole thing together, this whole industry owes a lot to NASSCOM. What do you see as what has actually worked? Some examples of what's really been game changers that we couldn't have probably thought of a few years ago, but we've achieved, GCCs have achieved thus far.
Thank you, Aveek. Certainly there has been a hockey stick moment in the GCC achievement in the last 7-8 years, and things have shaped to be far bigger than being a back office. GCCs are increasingly leveraging AI, machine language, sensor, IoT capabilities to be an innovative destination for their enterprise. Some example, and the entire concept of make from India for the global is getting real with innovative GCCs. Some of the example, one of the large aerospace company called Collins, they have developed an AI-propelled windshield wiper, designed, engineered, manufactured, and sold globally from India. They own 50% of the market share right from its launch 2 years back. That entire story is from India right now. Second is another company called Mercedes-Benz. They are developing their next level of operating system called MBOS. Fairly large portion of that operating system for a vehicle is getting innovated from India. The biggest example of Mercedes-Benz is all the Merc cars that which you drive today is got an AI-enabled capabilities to let you park where you need to park and what needs to be done. Renault Nissan, for example, from Chennai, has built huge AI capability in the electrification part. It senses the battery power through AI algorithm, what is the current battery power, and perhaps decides which is the nearest battery infrastructure point is available, navigates the car directly to assist that thing. Bosch, for example, has developed non-invasive medical hemoglobin sensor system leveraging IoT. All of this were unheard of 5 years back. That transition has happened in GCC world, and thanks to all of you for making it happen. This is the world for GCC across the world.
Thank you. If I could just get Shalini into this. You take a very different view. I mean, you take from a consulting point of view. You see so many companies that are in this space. What would you say are the main drivers that make a success for these companies so that some of them have been able to do this, add this value, some of them have struggled. So what's in your opinion that makes this difference?
Okay, so thanks for that, Aveek, and I'll build on some of what KSV, the examples he quoted. I think the vision and purpose with which you are leveraging India makes a huge difference. And when I say vision and purpose, I'm talking about how the global organization views this opportunity. You could view it as a simple cost arbitrage opportunity, but I'm afraid then your vision is very limited or very limiting. But I think we've all seen that phase go past, and today everyone appreciates what the possibilities are from here. The couple trends that I'd like to call out as I respond to that question. One is, KSV spoke of acceleration over 7-8 years. I think even since COVID, which was, I think, yet another tipping point, because we saw tech adoption across business value chains get so all-pervasive that it really influenced significantly the underlying data layer and what the possibilities that opens up. Very pertinent to why this subject of the conference itself, because it's extremely relevant. So as global organizations adopted technology globally, the recognition and the power of what India offers and what the Global Capability Center model could offer, I think clearly was better understood by many. And I think that vision and purpose is one of the most significant elements that influences the form, structure, the pace at which the GCC will grow and the empowerment you allow it. We've also seen the maximum number of technology centers come up here, technology being that nerve center and hub that's influencing the global organization in every which way possible. So as those technology centers come up, your ability to then empower through having global leaders here, we heard it through the morning, global chief data officers, you've heard of transformation officers, global CTOs who are being housed here to drive transformation. So to your point, I think two big levers of what makes the difference is the vision and the purpose with which you set up what you're trying to build here, how you empower it and how seamlessly you let it run. Like we heard in the kickoff session today, I think GCC is a term which will soon disappear because center has a connotation. It has to be that seamless extension. I don't want to belabor the point, but how do you really leverage capabilities to be that nerve center in a digitally connected environment to drive and transform depends on that vision, that purpose, the enabling environment and the empowerment you allow it.
Thanks, Shalini. Okay, VLK, you've been in the GCC world for a long time. Now you see another world. Is there a bridge? Is there something that's out there that's kind of helped us in the past from there? I'll come to the future later. I know you want to talk about the future a bit more, but I'll come to that later. But how do you see this growth of what Shalini and KSV spoke about being fueled by some of the kind of the ecosystem that you see around?
Thanks, Aveek. You're right. Been around the GC system long time, 40 years, and then moved to a venture capital role. Last year alone, I've talked to at least 300 startups. Okay. And if I look at the talent, which most of these startups, a lot of them come from the GCCs. I would say 70 to 80% of the talent comes from GCCs, fairly mature, mid-30s, early 40s, okay? And I think there's a fundamental difference between, what they, when they come out and start a startup, I'm just trying to bring the mindset out, and I believe that if the GCCs adopt that mindset, the innovation quotient that we all talk of can go exponential. It's a very simple thing. They understand the voice of the customer. The end product, the ability to understand what the end customer wants and solve for it is the biggest differentiator. So if you can get away from the mindset that my on-site manager is my client, okay, to really understanding who is the end client and solving for it, I believe that will be the greatest differentiator. And that's, whether it's a mindset, self-belief, skill, comfort, whatever, there's many factors that are going to do it. If you look at it, the talent is the same, Aveek. When they come out and they do a startup, it's extremely different. Just to give you some number, the DPIT, which is one of India's government bodies, in 2012 or 2013, they had 350 startups. Today, it's close to 100,000. Okay, so there is something happening. Okay, the question is, when you look at it, a lot of people come from here, and most amazing, I see a lot of startups in the hardware space. We all thought that India was never a hardware place, but huge amount of talent in hardware. So I think it's about the self-belief and moving to the voice of the customer in the right direction. That's the way I would look at it.
Okay. Tanay, you've kind of seen multiple GCCs. How have you seen GCCs really adding value in your experience? And if you can give a few examples, that would be great. Because we would like to learn what makes the difference.
Thanks. And I'm glad you spoke about value and not cost. That's one of the things in there. Also, later in the day as we are progressing and the panels coming up, the topics are getting the same and same. And I'm sure for the group in here, it's like regurgitating what you've been hearing the whole day. So I'll twist it to make it a little more practical and share my own experience in there. I feel for us as a GCC, when we started off, most of us ended up following our vendor partners. And so at times we hired from the vendor partners, what we set up started looking like the vendor partners in there. And when I come specifically for the AI and what's happening today with respect to data and analytics, I think cost is the biggest problem that we have. And the reason I say that, it's more value, and I've seen it in 2 or 3 GCCs that I've experienced in there, all our attempts when we try and set up for the first time is around a head count, is around number of seats, is around skill and talent. All of that is given, even the infrastructure in there. Really, the piece that in this space people are looking for is the business outcome. And when I talk about that from a value perspective, I work for Allstate, which is an insurance company. We have 200 doctors and medical practitioners, amongst other things. We work very specifically around bodily injuries and casualty as a business. And so when these teams were set up, clearly it was that on the domestic side, you would never get a medical practitioner working for an insurance company of this size. But because we have set up with a technology shop here, we have these medical practitioners working for us. The opportunity for us that came was beyond cost. And medical summarization, as you can guess, some of these cases for bodily injuries go on for quarters together, at times years together. And the conversations that happen with so many different people, whether it is hospitals, whether it is a different carrier that is there, whether it is the claimant and our customer that we are trying to protect and make full in terms of that. Today, because we have teams based here, and I think Shubho is somewhere in here, these teams have built a solution that not just does this simple thing of summarizing your claim, but then frees up to provide insight. So if you think in the normal term of cost, you think the technology is actually bringing productivity in. But the real gain is not by that productivity, but by that insight and freeing up the practitioner to do what they do best, and which is to protect our customer and to be able to give them the best. So I think that is what is changing today.
So again, to VLK's point, the end customer focus is probably the biggest gain out of this entire exercise, not really the cost that you want to talk about, right? So again, going back to VLK, slightly fast forward, right? What would you say would be the probably the drivers to accelerate this whole phenomena that's happening, and how do we take back best practices or best strategies that can enable us as a group to add a lot more value to the enterprise? What do you think would be the fast track forward?
I mean, it's a great question and a very difficult one to answer, because some of the technology, as you know, is evolving, and we need to see how it kind of shapes up. But if you ask me, there are, I would say, 2 or 3 things if you want to look at it. One is, if today, most of the thinking is deterministic, models are deterministic, model thinking has to be probabilistic, because obviously data science is probabilistic. So organizational thinking models needs to be more probabilistic. The thinking has come from a very mechanical world. It needs to become more biological, which is everything is interconnected. So synthesis is going to matter. And it's like, I come to you, Aveek, and say, probably this is the answer. Most often you won't like it. You want a definite answer, right? But if you look at AI, it's giving you a probabilistic answer. So, and organizations need to adapt. We need to be able to tell our stories that way. So that's one thing. The biggest change I kind of see is, if you look at it, how the earlier speaker talked about the evolution, right? You had, data warehouses, but you still queried the data warehouse, and some SME was helping you query the data warehouse, okay? In the new age models, I don't think there's an SME going to be querying the data. You need to understand the business and start to ask right questions. So your ability to ask the right questions and fine-tune the model is going to be the differentiator. It's not about you tell me what and I'll write the query. Okay, it's your ability to ask the right question, which means your ability to know the business, the product is important. My earlier boss used to tell me, if you're a technologist, you're 1x productive. If you're a technologist who knows the product, you're 5x productive. If you're the technology who knows the business, you're 10x productive. So you need to become the 10x productive person.
See, we've heard this before, and that know the business, understand the customer, but it's easier said than done. You are sitting 10,000 miles away from the customer in many cases. How do you bridge the divide?
I mean, it's absolutely a great question. And this is where I think today, I can give two examples. One from my earlier organization at Broadridge. So we have a product called Impact, okay, which is a market-leading fixed income settlement solution in the world. And earlier, client focus groups used to happen in New York. 4 years back, we had the client focus group in Hyderabad. Simple reason was all the end users of Impact were in Hyderabad, whether it's Wells Fargo or JPM or etc. So we didn't have to travel 10,000 miles away. So we have seen, for examples, that if Bank of America had a problem, they used to call the call center in Raleigh, which used to route it to New York and answer back in Hyderabad, next building to us. So it's actually, we have to understand there's a huge power of the network out here. Question is, how do you leverage that power of the network and get going? And the second thing is the startup ecosystem or, working. Today, you can look at the insurance market here. It's by and large same. There may be a few regulations here. So don't sit in your comfort zone. If you are in the insurance industry, understand what's happening in the Indian market there. If you're in the financial services, understand what's happening over here. You can apply those lessons. So it's not too far away. Leverage the network. Get outside, talking to the same people in your organization. Get outside. Build network outside your comfort zone and other industries. You will get that. So it's ability to have the conversation, Aveek.
Okay, as we come to you.
Sorry, if I may just add to that, because you spoke of impacting the customer from so many miles away, the opportunity given how digitized that customer is getting, with more and more stuff getting online, is also we are seeing the gap shrink between what is onshore front end and what's the GCC. So whether it is hence controlling data and everything that happens at the back end to impact customer experience, or whether it is even physical stores with applications in the metaverse and stuff that's happening where you can control and steer even a real system by creating the digital clones here. I mean, examples like that is what I think the global players are sitting up and waking up to. Just another set of possibilities there.
Yep. Kez, you want to say something?
Interesting conversation to build up what VLK said. Me at NASSCOM host about 2 CXOs every month. What I've been hearing from them is the following challenges. Going forward with all the leaders in GCCs could perhaps spend time investing on it. Problem statement 1 they have is that they realize the globe is going to be distributed workforce. Invest on leadership. Invest on leadership to manage distributed workforce. Part of the team here, part of the team elsewhere, leader here, etc. is one. Take away the fixation of adding headcount to the measure of success. Evaluate and look at how many global leadership roles, global roles are emanating from your center, the second one. Third, which is very, very important, is that what has worked in the past, it's good. It is important for you to redraw your vision. What does your entity stands for the next 5 years? Are you going to be an innovation center? Are you going to be a cost center? Are you going to be an enterprise talent augmentation center? And are you going to be a leadership development center? Call it out. Show, demonstrate that you have capability to execute the plan what we have. Fourth, which is important, is you to talk about VLK. Please invest on domain and business. Because end of the day, the generalist role is getting over. If India has to move further from the being beyond the back office, we have to be investing more in terms of domain and business. Last but not 2 points are, one is please practice inclusivity. Even if you do a search for yourself, most organizations, the average age of a workforce, about 71 to 75% is Gen Zs. That problem is unique. India can solve. You can solve. That be the model for the rest of the world to follow. And last but not the least is as to VLK, please spend your time on ecosystem development. Ecosystem development is within your organization, ecosystem development is outside the organization. We share your experiences, learn from one another to bring it up. These are the 5 things I will say. If you practice it, your future is guaranteed.
Thanks, KSV. Tanay, we are kind of closing in on time. Why don't you tell us what your thoughts are sitting in the GCC as to what the future would, what you guys are kind of thinking about to accelerate your growth in this space?
If I could foretell future 5 years from now, I would be the oracle in that sense. But what I see happening, and I think COVID's been a great leveler, what I see happening is when we really speak about global worlds, it's actually happening now. Even in the US, and I'll speak for Allstate, 80% of our workforce is very distributed and actually working from home. And so all those blocks that we had which said, hey, if you're thousands of miles away and you would be able to do this or not, is actually disappearing. We need to co-locate. That definition of co-location is actually changed. And so what I see an opportunity for us out of here is to do a lot of test and learns. A lot that we can do in terms of sandboxing. If I look at what's happening in insurance as a space, whether you're in India or in the US, and especially now with a lot that's happening in the digital space, you have players here, you have talent here, who are essentially solving that same problem. Nothing stops us from solving that problem for our customers, our end customers that are sitting out in the US. The example I was speaking about in Telesum, that medical summarization, nobody was looking westwards to say, tell me a problem and then I will solve it. I think the key requirement for us in the future is to have that faith and look internally here in this market and do a lot of test and learns and then take that to the larger global scale.
Thank you very much. That's very insightful. I thank you all, four of you. It was very nice, very informative to hear all 4 different perspectives. And KSV, we finished on time. Thank you.
Thank you.